Hi everyone, we're just giving people time to log in. So we'll probably actually start broadcasting at 2 minutes past the hour. So that gives people time to go through those bits and pieces while you're waiting for everyone to log in. If you want to make your way over to the chat and just say hi, tell us what the weather's like where you are, share your LinkedIn profile, all of those sort of things, that will be fine. I'm delighted to say that it's extremely sunny in the UK. Not something we can say all that often. And when you're putting something in the chat, make sure you're saying it to everyone, not just to the hosts and panelists. So, okay, the chat has started, which is good. We've got just under a minute before I'll be handing over to Anita, who will be doing the welcome, and we'll start from there. So I'd like to hand over the introduction to Anita Watkins, the new CEO of the Insights Association. Anita, it's with you.
Thank you, Ray. And it's my pleasure to welcome everyone to our Global Data Quality webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a great subject. Today, we're going to be talking through 10 practical steps to improve data quality, drawn directly from our Global Data Quality Pledge. And we're going to be framing each of those steps from both perspectives, what buyers should ask from their suppliers and agencies, and what panel companies should have in place. So you're going to get a lot out of today. It's top 10 tips, and I think they're really practical steps that you can take to improve data quality. So whether you're commissioning a project or producing it, you should have it leave today's webinar with a concrete checklist. So I want to introduce our speakers on the previous slide. If we can go back, thank you. So today, as Ray mentioned, I'm Anita Watkins, the new CEO for the Insights Association in the U.S. And I'm delighted to have Rachel here as the president from SampleCon. We have Ray, who just met from SMR, and we have Chuck, who is the president of DM2 and does a lot of the research for us. So talking us through those steps are Rachel and Ray, and then you're going to hear a little bit about the benchmarking study, Wave 2, a little preview of that, those results from Chuck as we go. And if you'll please put your questions in the chat, as mentioned, we would love to hear from you, and we'll have Q&A at the end of the webinar. So I'll be looking forward to that. Okay, on the next slide. So if you're not familiar with the Global Data Quality Partnership, this is a collaborative profession which our aim is to build confidence in the data we collect and deliver through data quality guidance and standards that enhance the value of research. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel, who's going to get us started.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to see so many faces popping in. And I'm so thrilled to be part of the Global Data Quality Initiative that we've done. And on this slide, you can see all of the organizations globally that are involved at this time. We've been growing over the last 2 years and really working to represent the vast breadth and reach of our industry. If we can go to the next slide, please. So let's talk about the Global Data Quality Pledge, which many of you have heard about. But if you haven't, really what the goal of this pledge is to create a shared cross-industry commitment around raising and reaching the highest standards of data quality across the industry. And what we've looked at doing as we created this was to create something that could translate into really practical steps that would foster a trusted ecosystem. And as of today, we are quickly approaching 300 signers. So thank you to each and everyone who has signed it already. And there is still the opportunity for you to sign it. This is an open-ended invitation to be part of what we're doing in terms of driving towards better decision making through high quality data that we can all provide. If we can go to the next slide, please. So, what we thought we'd do today is look at, based on that pledge, what are 10 steps that every single one of us can be doing today to improve our data quality? And we'll walk through this list of items, but it is all tangible, actionable items that really will make it so that we can see immediate improvement in our data quality. We could go to the next slide. So, number 10, document your approach to data quality. So when we look at this from the buyer's perspective, it is really about asking your partners, can you share with us what are your data quality standard operating procedures? How often do you review it and update it? And who's doing that? And which methods does it cover? And the goal here is to get past a marketing piece and get to documented approaches. Every step should be able to be verified. And from a panel company standpoint, um, looking internally at having a data quality SOP that you can have available for clients. I know that many people have this in place already, but if you don't have it, it's not hard to create something like this. Look internally, make sure you have somebody who owns data quality and who is reviewing this at least an annual basis. I finding through my conversations that people feel they're needing and wanting to review it more often as things change. Um, and look at what you're doing and how that maps to the SMR 37 as well as to the GDQ glossary, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. What this does is it simply allows, oh, I'm sorry, go back. What this does is it simply allows for us to have better conversations. Everyone's able to compare, and it is a sign of confidence and a sign of transparency in what you're doing as a company on both sides. We can go to the next slide. Verify participant consent and identity. So this seems like it should be a pretty simple thing to do. It's not always as easy, and we know that. And so we need to be asking questions and we need to be looking at how we are navigating this. And if there isn't a process in place to verify participant consent and identity, that should be a red flag to every buyer in the industry. So asking questions like, how is consent captured and stored? Do you reconfirm it? What are you tracking as the signals as you look at that identification? And what is your, excuse me, process for fraud and duplicate detection? And how do you measure this? From a panel company perspective, having a clear, explicit record of how you do this linked to every participant is increasingly important as the industry evolves. Having a multi-layer identity validation and not just a single checkpoint, also important. And making sure that there is a continuous validation. And each company needs to determine what that period of time is, but we need to be ensuring that everybody is who they say they are. And it really comes down to trust when it talks about identity. So we want our participants to trust us, we want buyers to trust us, and we want panel companies to feel confident in who they're putting forward. And at the end of the day, this ensures that the rest of the research process is clean. It really is the foundation to what we're doing. Our next tip is to secure surveys at entry and exit points. So much of the fraud that we're seeing in our space happens when there is not any securing of our surveys. And so we need to be stepping back and looking at how can we do this. And there are things that GDQ is doing on working committees right now to actually look at elevating this specific topic, because it seems to be that if we can come up with some type of standard, some type of shared resources that will help, that will expedite us in getting to this. But if we can secure it, then it becomes truly about evaluating what is happening within the surveys and not where it's breaking at the entry and exit points. So if you're a buyer, asking your suppliers, do you support server to server redirects? If it's not server to server, what level of securing surveys are you doing? There's multiple ways to do this. How are your URL parameters protected? Are you encrypting? Are you hashing? What are you doing that's protecting the survey and the integrity of the research that's being done? And then how do you detect and respond to traffic anomalies in real time? So how is that being managed by suppliers? If you're a panel company, looking internally at what are your procedures right now. Do you have an encryption process or some type of security in place for surveys? If you don't, what will it take to get there? What do you need to create? And having conversations with your clients, the buyers, about why it's important and why you believe this should be being done. Um, and you know, it's important and it seems like such an easy step to do, but the redirects are us just leaving our door open and allowing anyone to come in. And as soon as we secure and close, that's going to create a loop that will kind of start to reduce, that will definitely reduce the ghost completes and help reduce the contamination of our sample pool. The next tip is about being transparent. So let's talk about sample methods. This is really important because transparency actually drives greater data quality and it allows buyers specifically to have something to compare. So when you're looking at what sample methods are, asking questions like, what is the class of sample sourcing you're using? Is it panel? Is it affiliate? Is it a river? Is it from River? Is it a partner? Is it aggregated? These are all things that we need to be asking to understand what you're buying. Can you provide SMR 37 responses and current GDQ benchmarks that you've participated in and where your stats are falling on that? Which standards govern the work that you're doing? For a panel company, making sure that you're up to date on your SMR 37 responses so you just have them ready to go. Making sure that you are participating in the twice a year data quality benchmarks that are happening. This allows us as an industry to start to track and see where the fraud is, to have better informed conversations, and to also be able to get ahead and see when there are problems that are starting to happen, to ensure we're doing that. And just again, ensuring you have clear documentation to answer those questions. The next tip is using consistent data quality terminology. So often I hear when I talk to people in the industry that um, everyone is using different words to um, talk about data quality in general. So is it a participant? Is it a respondent? Is it a panelist, for example? If we can go to the next slide, Ray. So GDQ launched our GDQ glossary about a year and a half ago. And this document, which is housed on the website, lists clear terminology with definitions to allow us to start using the same vocabulary. It is incredibly hard to compare and understand what you're buying and what you're selling if we're not using the same language. And so by starting to do this and driving forward with this, it allows for us to kind of get away from not being able to compare what we're doing and actually be able to have clear and honest conversations. So familiarize yourself with the glossary, share the glossary with your team, share the glossary with your partners, have those conversations, and start to use them in your RFPs, start to use them in your conversations. It will allow for us to get to a stronger place and a more comfortable place in having these data quality conversations. If we can go to the next slide. And I'm going to transfer it to Ray now for this portion of our last 5 of our top 10 list.
Thank you, Rachel. That was really helpful. And following on the same theme, number 5, follow ethical codes and privacy regulations. I mean, this is, like a lot of these, is really a no-brainer. But buyers, you need to be asking the suppliers which codes do they apply to. There are lots and they don't have to apply to all of them and adhere to all of them, but they need to at least be signed up to one of them. They need to be able to show that they're doing it. How are they dealing with laws like GDPR, CCPA, etc.? Can you provide the data processing agreement template? How do they deal with breaches? All of these are really important for you as buyers because you are driving this process. You are the ones that suffer the most. You are the ones that can really drive it to be more successful. We do want to see panel companies joining up to at least one industry code, having all that documentation, because ethics and regulation aren't separate from quality. They are data quality. It does not happen by accident. You have to have the processes that Rachel's just been talking about. You have to sign up to them and you have to follow through with them. Apply best practice questionnaires design. So we talk a lot about fraud, but when you look at the information, an awful lot of bad data comes from bad questionnaires and bad descriptions of questionnaires. So how are you piloting it? Take the time to make sure that surveys are piloted. Are they long, fatiguing? Are they not suitable for mobile? All of these sorts of questions. If you're a panel company, you have to be willing to push back if the questionnaire simply is not suitable. Look at the best practice guidelines from MRS, SMR, your local associations. There are lots and lots out there that you could be using. Have a look at what's going on in the survey, particularly the drop-off points. Is the speed of completion changing as you run through? Because bad questionnaires create bad data. Educate your team and partners. So you could have wonderful processes. You could have signed up to all sorts of great things. But if people don't know what quality looks like, if they can't read the processes for data quality, then it's not going to happen. There needs to be training. There needs to be understanding. There needs to be reviews every time something goes wrong. And good companies will be sponsoring industry training programs. They'll be taking part in benchmarking. They will be helping contribute to the standards that we're creating. So standards are essential for quality, but they only work when people understand why and how to do them. And then it's got to be all the way through the value chain. So it might sometimes seem a long way between somebody who is buying the research as an end client and a subcontractor somewhere far away making it happen. But as we say at the bottom line here, the quality is only as good as the weakest link. You need to know, as the buyer of this research, who is involved at every step. You need, as an agency, to know who is involved at every step. There need to be documented processes and traceability all the way back down the line. And the last one is important, but it's also a plea. Please engage with the GDQ, the Global Data Quality Initiative. We want your input. If you're a buyer, you want to make sure that 100% of your suppliers are involved with GDQ, that they've signed a pledge. If they've not signed a pledge, ask them why not, because there is no good reason for companies not to sign the pledge and then abide by the pledge. Power companies participate in the benchmarking. We're all stronger if we have good data. We know to manage something, you have to measure it. Make sure that you sign it, make sure that you adopt the guidance. It's a collective action. We can't solve this alone. That is why all the organizations that Rachel showed you earlier are joining with the Global Data Quality Initiative, why we want more people to come on side with us. And now I'm going to just show you the summary of that. Buyers, ask these 10 questions. Suppliers, have your answers ready. Train your teams on the Global Data Quality Guidance and the glossary. So we're using that shared language that Rachel talked about a moment ago. Contribute to the benchmarking And you are going to see that benchmarking in just a few seconds, and make sure that you have signed that pledge. So with that, I am going to hand over to Chuck Miller, who's going to give you a sneak peek into the results of wave 2 of the benchmarking.
All right. Thank you, Ray. Appreciate being here today and being able to share this with you. We're pretty excited to really dive into this much more deeply here over the next week to 10 days. And you can look for the full report, hopefully in about 2 weeks. We'll be working to get that out. So you can go ahead and advance, please. And so a little bit about the benchmarking. Really the goal of the benchmarking is, has been said, to create the most comprehensive empirical look at survey data quality. It's something that we've all heard, kind of the anecdotal stories about removal rates and those sorts of things. And certainly, in one point in time, that's valuable information. But really, collectively, if we can get a good look at what's going on in the industry, that's going to help us with the goal of establishing kind of firm benchmarks and then being able to look at that over time to see how we're improving. You can see some of the metrics that we're looking at through this. Really, a key one is that third one there, the removal rates and the cleanout rates. And as I'll talk about in a second, we've gone through a bit of definition change, trying to look at that, something that we really want to work to solidify, something that we can look at ongoing. And in doing so, what we'll do is we'll look at this by the 4 study types that you see below, B2B, B2C, separating out healthcare patients and healthcare provider, since those are methodologically, different audiences, different types of studies. So being able to look at this by the 4, we hope to really get you good numbers that you can use, to benchmark your own work. You can advance, please. So wave 2 is currently being analyzed, as I said. Thank you. Thanks to everyone who participated, and would like to remind people that if you sign the pledge, one of the things that you've agreed to do is help provide us data. So going into the next wave, we are going to be looking for as much data as we can. I can tell you, not to steal the lead on the next slides, but we don't have as much healthcare data as we'd like to see. So we'll be working really hard to try and get that for next wave. But anything that you can provide is absolutely appreciated. For this wave, our ask was 10,000 plus cases. We had steady participation wave over wave, about 47 companies this wave. And some of the things that we did to improve on wave 2 were really asking some clarification questions. One of the things that we saw in wave 1 when we looked at it was some of these numbers look a little low. And what we came to find out is, there are myriad ways to configure sample to survey with different types of providers in the process, at the front and the middle, at the back. And we needed to add some clarifying questions in order to really tease out subsets and look at this data appropriately. So quite honestly, in wave 1, we had a bit of a numerator-denominator mismatch on some of those things. As I said, we're going to look to segment this out, tease it out as much as we can. More data is going to be better as we're doing this. And then this way, we also were able to streamline some of the data processing. Good work by the analysis team that you see below. Really appreciate the work that these 4 people are doing with me in order to pull this together for you. You can advance. So clarification of some of the definitions in wave 1, in wave 2, coming out of wave 1, what we did was we ended up going and doing some qualitative interviewing with people that submitted. As we were looking at that wave 1 data, we were questioning ourselves. We were hearing some other things from people. We decided we really needed to dive into this. And, as you can imagine, every provider, every agency is a little bit different in the way they operate. When you put, a whole collective together, there's going to be lots of different ways to configure. So we really wanted to kind of hone in on these definitions so that we could subset things appropriately. And First definition that we work to clarify is pre-survey, and this relates to pre-survey removal. And this is really going to be anything that happens before the first survey question in the participant experience is asked. So this is potentially inside of a survey app or survey instance before a question is presented. It's also inside the instance itself before the question is presented. So it's really those combination of things, everything that happens potentially across one or multiple companies before a first question is viewed, and that is a screener and a survey. So moving on to the next one, in survey is really during this participant experience. It's after, sorry, Ray, go ahead and back up. It's really, the inside the survey experience. It's in the screener, in the survey. It's the things that participant is seeing. So anything that happens during that phase is going to be classified as in survey. And then post survey, as you can imagine, is going to be any removals that are happening on the back end. And some of those are objective business rules that have been set. Sometimes it's subjective, right? It's the analyst going through and saying, you know what, this doesn't look quite right. I'm going to take it out. And, the goal of all of this was really, to solidify this key metric of the pre-survey removal and block rate. And so that's going to be blocked entry to the survey. It's not the in-survey. It's not the post-survey removals. It's exclusive of deduplication and overquota. So that's also an important point, that sometimes when we hear these anecdotal stories of number of people excluded, it can include that deduplication number as well. So that begins to muddy waters as well. So this pre-survey removal is going to be exclusive of that deduplication. We can advance. So some of the metadata to go through for you, taking a look at, the answers to some of these qualification questions, these clarifying questions that we added to Wave 2, asking companies where pre-survey controls exist. As you can see, relatively high there as expected, very high among the sample providers, still high among the agencies, about 9 and 10 say that they had some sort of pre-survey controls to exclude people in their processes. Moving on to, are you able to measure those pre-survey removals? Among the sample providers, yeah, almost unanimously, those that are removing. But among agencies, about 6 and 10 said that, I don't really know how many people are being removed. And that's because they're trusting their providers. They say it's the provider's job to remove that. They don't care. They just want the data clean when it gets to them. So this gap has been a bit of a problem, too, in our ability to report. But that's a good number that we now have that we'll continue to look at. In terms of being able to look at post-survey removals, as you might imagine, agencies, of course, are 100%. They're the ones looking at the data. They know what they're going to deliver to their clients. On the sample supplier side, there's a handful that don't quite have that visibility. And then another key question we wanted to ask was, do you distinguish fraud from other removals? On the sample supplier side, obviously that's a little bit more important because they're trying to clean up their supply, their source. On the agency side, many times people are saying, you know what, I just want to remove them. I don't really care about the distinction between, was it fraud? Is it bad? It doesn't matter because it's coming out of my data that I report to my client. So really getting context into all this has been valuable. Go ahead and advance, Ray. One other interesting piece of metadata is among the research agencies, among the about 9 out of 10 that say that some pre-survey controls exist, we asked then, where do those controls exist? And what we found was that, about half are relying on their sample supplier exclusively. About a third are doing things themselves and working with their supplier. And then about 1 in 7 research agencies say they're the only ones that are doing it. They're taking care of it themselves. And I think that makes sense. I think that there's a number of the very large agencies that may even have tools that they've purchased or built themselves, that sort of thing. that take care of that. I think the converse of that also is then about 6 and 7 agencies are either are working with a supplier of some sort to help clean out those front end removals. We can go ahead and advance. So as I noted, this is kind of the breakdown of the type of data we provided. We got about 2 million records this wave, about the same as last. And as you can see, it pretty heavily skews in this B to C category. We don't quite have as much healthcare as we would like. So when we get to the next slide, you're going to see some of those sample sizes are a bit small, and take the findings with a grain of salt. And what we're going to do is we're going to work to really boost that next wave so that we can have really good metrics on those. But the good news is on the B2C side, we've got a lot of data. We've got quite a bit for, just typically the biggest part of our industry. And we've got some good benchmarks that we can share there. So we can advance. And so beginning to look at the removal rate types by the different types of audiences or studies, you can begin to see some of the metrics here. So in terms of pre-survey removals, on the B2C side, we're looking at about 12%. And this is among the people that say they're recording this and that they can measure this. It bumps up a bit with B2B. It's not quite as high with patient healthcare, which I think makes sense. Those lists are probably, pretty clean that you're going to and starting from in many cases. So it makes sense that overall it might be a little bit lower. As we get into the in-survey clean-out rates, and in-survey here, now this is, going to be done by, again, people that are, using some sort of tool. It could be something inside your survey engine that's looking at, is there any mouse movement? Or I'm deciding in real time, person has done enough egregious things that I'm just going to kick them out, so I can quickly move on in order to help fill quotas. So it could be things like real-time terminations for speeding or other kinds of egregious acts. So within survey, maybe somewhere between, depending upon, what we're looking at here, 5 to 10% is being removed, and some of it is being designated as fraud, which is interesting. Again, people may or may not choose to designate it as fraud. They are just looking to remove it, and that's the key thing in their mind. So again, we've got a good portion of people that are being removed pre-survey and survey across the board. You can see it's kind of 20-ish% in many cases, which, again, kind of makes sense. It's certainly higher than it was in wave one. And I think we're kind of honing in on where the world stands. Among post-survey cleanouts, you can see the rates, vary considerably here. B2C, we're hearing from people that about 13% of stuff is being removed. On the B2B side, for this sample, which 150,000 records, not huge but not small, about 60% being removed, which I suppose is no great surprise. It's where a lot of fraud exists, higher incentives. People trying to get into those surveys and complete them that may not be qualified to do so. So a lot of removals there. Same kind of healthcare patient side, potentially higher incentives, and it's a narrower audience. This is a small sample size, as you can see, but the numbers do make sense. Go ahead and advance, Ray. And then some of the other study metrics by these breakdowns. We looked at incidence, and we decided to do it a little bit differently this wave. We're reporting it among those people that provided both sold and actual, which I think makes sense. It's making sure that, kind of our bases are similar for comparison. So you can see what the general sold and actual incidences look like. No great surprise that actuals are coming in a hair below sold, but they're not significantly different in many cases. So I think that's a good sign. We've also got our medians for LOI here that have been reported. As you can imagine, the B2B is higher, and then as you get into the healthcare work, it gets higher still. We've got abandon rates that we're able to report, so people can compare to that. And then device type looks as I would expect when you look at B2C and healthcare patient, kind of the general consumer world. It's about 60%, about 6 in 10 people are taking surveys on mobile devices. That's pretty consistent with what I've seen. And I think a number of us see regularly. And then as you get into the more professional audiences, they may be more apt to do it on a desktop. This next metric is the one that is really kind of fascinating, that we really want to work to lock down. As you heard Rachel say, one of the things that we really think is going to help prevent fraud is securing the front and back end of surveys using link encryption. And interestingly, we had a lot of missing data this wave. Not as much in wave one, but this wave we did have more. And so we'd like to take this as kind of an education opportunity. The people that submitted, in many cases, left it blank. They didn't say they didn't know. But we'd love to have this piece of information. We'd love for everyone to understand what your company is doing, knowing whether or not on particular types of studies you're using link encryption, because our hypothesis is that if we can see this number go up over time, we're going to see the amount of fraud go down and the amount of removals go down. We're just going to tighten things up to be more secure. So we'd love to see better reporting of this number, better awareness of what's going on across, all of us in our ecosystem, so that we can see this number move up over time. We can advance. And then I've got the same numbers for you, broken out by research agency and now supplier. And that supplier category is both sample suppliers and a handful of platform companies that we provided. So in the report, we're going to be able to look at it in this manner as well, being able to see how these removals work across the ecosystem. I'm not going to step through all of these numbers. Why don't we go ahead and advance? And you'll see the same sorts of things here by agency and supplier. And our goal, and I've got a call right after this with the analysis team, is going to be to really look at how we can break these out by country as well, where we've got the base size is to do so. We're going to report across as 4 study types, or as many of the 4 as we can by country, so that we can look at this globally by country, across study types, across research agency and supplier, in order to give you the best data that you can to compare what you're seeing with what the industry reports it's seeing. We can go ahead and advance. And so for wave 3, really quickly, just want to step through a few things that we want to do differently for wave 3. Our mantra is continuous improvement, right? We want to continue to tweak and refine so that we've got the best data possible, the best view into the world as it exists, and the best data for all of you to use to see how you compare to what's going on in the rest of the ecosystem. So 2 primary goals are to make the submission process quicker, easier, and predictable for you. And we also want to increase participation, improve the representation, so that we can look at more cuts of the data, as I said. So we can advance. So what we've decided, and this is the whole GDQ. We've been talking, and what we'd like to do is we'd like to have 2 submissions and 2 reporting waves per year. And what we want to do is we want to set the fixed timing so that everybody understands the cadence. It's something that many times we've been submitting, or we've been setting a deadline, and then we get submissions, and then we get emails toward the deadline saying, hey, can I have a little bit more time? And what we'd like to do so that we avoid this rolling and ill-defined submission deadline is to kind of set it fixed. So in the fall, we're going to say October 15th, have your data in. We'll probably start promoting 6 weeks in advance of that. In the spring, same thing. We'll have a fixed deadline of April 15. For those in the US, that's tax day. So you know to submit your data along with your taxes. Go ahead and advance. And something that we are considering, we are not 100% there yet. We're still talking to people, collecting feedback. I would love to hear from anyone listening today if you have an opinion. One of the things that we've considered doing is rather than asking for respondent level data, asking for aggregated survey metrics for the submission. So, right now, when someone goes to pull data, it takes a special type of person, especially on the agency side, where they may have interviewing in different platforms, going to the different platforms, trying to pull a quote representative set of respondent level records that kind of looks like and mirrors the business that's being done. It does take a specific skill set in order to do that. Our thought in moving to this study level is that it's something that people can be doing all throughout the 6 month period. They can finish the study, they can set aside the metrics somewhere. They can go to CRM systems, they can pull this sort of thing, whatever systems exist in a company. Hopefully, more people will be able to access the data, be able to pull it, submit it. So that is one thing we're strongly considering. We're also thinking about potentially a hybrid that on the agency side where it is harder to pull. Maybe we do study level metrics, maybe we stick to respondent level on the supplier side, sample supplier side, I should say. So we're not sure, but would love feedback so that we can let you know what to plan for. You can go ahead and advance. And kind of as I said, some of the benefits potentially to moving to the aggregated study widens the scope and skill set of the staff that can pull. It also potentially allows brand side researchers to submit data. They may have an understanding of their projects and what they've been told and what they see when they get the data. So potentially we can get more submissions there. We also, along the way, have heard, from a few larger agencies that their legal departments have had concerns about, appropriate anonymization. So, that gets removed from this equation. And we really hope that, this potentially both widens the scope of the studies that we're looking at and increases participation, allows more people to participate. So, again, let us know if you've got feedback. I think that this is something that we'll strongly consider. If we go this route, we'll probably have a preference for counts over percentages, but we would probably accept either. Again, that's something that we're trying to talk to submitters now and understand the best way to do this going forward. We can advance. And that's it for me. I'm going to go ahead and send it back over to Anita.
Thank you, Chuck. It's great to have everybody joining us today. I've got a couple questions to kick off our Q&A segment, but please do, if you've got anything that you're thinking of, please do put your questions into the Q&A or into the chat, and we'll be sure to get to those. The first question is, what's the challenge in moving the needle in data quality in our industry? What do you think about that? It seems like this keeps coming up. And of course, I've been on a listening tour now, just beginning my role, and that this topic comes up frequently about a concern, and it seems to be a challenge for us. Rachel, do you want to kick us off with that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think I choose to look at it as an opportunity and not a challenge. So we sometimes I think in any industry, we can all be our own, worst advocates and so there's an opportunity here to have better conversations. And I often hear when I'm talking to companies in this space on all sides of the industry that, you know, w- they tell a great story, but then they're nervous to tell it beyond that small conversation or that one-on-one conversation. And so I think for the industry right now, we're at a point we have to change. There are things we have to rethink about what we're doing, and this is a challenge that faces every single company in our space. There's no one who's excluded from being part of the solution. in moving the needle on data quality. And so I think we have to start to think as a unit and have to start to see that if we can raise the tide together, it's actually going to benefit and allow for more competition for everybody else. And I think when we embrace that, then the magic will happen with really being able to move the needle on where data quality is.
Yeah, great. I agree completely. What about Ray or Chuck? Anything to add to that?
Um,
Say, I think among the, go ahead, Ray. You
no,
go ahead.
we were talking in preparation, and Rachel made a really good point that quality is a choice. We need everyone to recognize that when you are not following through these processes, you are making a choice to get worse stuff. And if you're an end client, you're letting down the shareholders and your end customers. If you're an agency, you're letting down your clients. We just need everyone to come on board with this, and that will move the needle.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think one of the eye-opening things to me has been, like I said, the multiple configurations that take place. I mean, I've been involved in online sampling as long as there's been online sampling. So I've seen the evolution.
Mm-hmm.
I understand how, APIs work today and, we're using routers and all of that. And so the front end can be a little messy at times. But I think that, one of the things to do is just, the best we can at being transparent about how we're doing things on the front end, who is doing them, making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, because, we've got fantastic tools out there. And every situation in delivering data to a client can be a little bit unique. And just really, making sure that you understand who's doing what's going on in the process, where these checks are being done and where they're taking place is probably a key to making sure that we keep elevating and using the tools at our disposal.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I would I was going to say I would also add to that that I regularly have conversations with people who say we would pay more for quality sample. And so I wonder why those conversations aren't happening, and why are we in this kind of race to the lowest price, and where is the breakdown in having the confidence to say we have high quality sample, and let me tell you why, and let me show you why, but there's a price that comes with being able to get that quality. Like I struggle with where the breakdown is on that for us as an industry.
yeah. I think that is it's probably it's probably an outstanding question. I don't know that any of us have the real answer on that. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we do hear
It's a
from a
great point.
segment that, yeah, to Rachel's point, I mean, we do hear from a segment that, we are willing to pay for quality. There's also a segment that absolutely buys on price. And
Right.
so, being able to, you know, take a look and apply our best methods at potentially a slightly higher price, but the benefit being higher quality, is going to be critical. And I think a lot of this comes down to also the decisions that get made on the end client side from the research, right? Certainly for very strategic, work, reframing your packaging or not packaging your products, your value prop and your offering strategically, you want the best quality data, right? But sometimes, people are looking for a quick answer. And I've been on the client side, so I know sometimes somebody just needs a number for a deck for a bullet point, right? And a lot of times shortcuts are taken to get a number really quickly, that may or may not have significant implications. So, kind of also looking at where we apply that based on the value of work, and the value of the insight, is important too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, that makes sense. I mean, another question is sort of the flip side, which is what gives you optimism about progress that we're making as an industry in data quality?
I'm encouraged to see, you know, the number of people that are providing fraud detection, data quality tools and all of that. Not only businesses specifically set up to address a piece of the ecosystem and meet a need there, but across the board, the number of agencies and others that are saying that this is an area of focus. So I think that we have the appropriate level of attention applied to this, which is a good first step. Now, we need to continue to tighten and refine and figure out how to deliver more, but I think that we've reached the point where we realize that there's a significant need. Many people are stepping up to help meet that need, and we just need to keep working to refine. Kind of like I said with the benchmarking. I mean, we're just continuous improvement, right? That's going to get us where we need to go. There's not going to be a silver bullet.
I feel optimistic just by the shift in the conversations. I feel like in the last 6 to 12 months, I, I I hear more honest conversations happening, and I hear people trying to figure out how to get there, what they need to do. Um, when we first started talking, I felt like data quality was almost like a dirty word in the industry. Transparency
Yeah,
was a dirty word in the industry, and you don't see that anymore. And I think that there's a clear shift with the brands paying attention now. I think
yes,
that there was a fear that the sky was falling, and I don't believe that's true. We have a challenge and we have to work through and overcome it, but all of our data isn't bad, right? And we've actually, now with the IA benchmarks, we're actually able to start tracking how it looks, but we hadn't been tracking it. And so it was very hard to have those conversations. And so seeing that movement, seeing brands increasingly taking responsibility and trying to educate themselves on how to do this better also around data quality, I think gives me hope that we're moving in the right direction as an industry.
Yeah. And on that,
agree.
I'll say that I have heard more people on the brand side say that they realize they need to be involved in this process and they need to take a closer look at survey instruments and things like that because, it is everything. It's not just the participants and the respondents, but it's, their work through the system and their flow through the system and into the survey and how good the survey is. It's obtaining the data it needs and doing so in a reasonable manner that's not overly obtrusive. And I think clients are beginning to see that, they can contribute to this effort as well.
Yeah, agree. That was what I was going to add. I think that they have more skin in the game now or feel that way anyway. It's
Mhm.
not just on the
Yeah, and
supplier.
I'm hearing much more discussion from end clients now. So it's
Yeah,
good that they're in the fold.
absolutely. Ray, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, very similar thoughts. In order for things to get better, and the reason why we're optimistic they will, is you have to have methods for them to get better, and you have
Mm,
to have people wanting to get better.
yes.
We've now got a great toolkit with all the GDQ things to show how it can improve. Over 300 organizations have signed the pledge. That number needs to go up, but that's still an enormous achievement of people committing on paper to what they're going to do. And we just need more people to recognize the value of that to keep the ball moving.
And to Ray, to that point, like I think the who signed the pledge is an incredibly helpful and maybe not tapped into enough tool for the industry for buyers. And the pledge obviously should can be signed by everyone across our entire industry, but it's a resource to look at what suppliers have made that commitment and to know that there's a way to buy with confidence. And so I think that um, this opportunity to educate the industry and for us to all kind of start to say, let's have these conversations and hold each other accountable is actually a really positive thing. It's not a negative thing.
Agree completely. I think this is our last call for questions. I'm not seeing any new ones popping into the chat or the Q&A. So let me just give it a moment. But yes, we encourage you to consider, if you haven't signed the pledge, commit to this. Get to know this global data quality work stream more, participate in the benchmarking study. and really help us be part of the solution. You know, we need everybody in the industry really pulling together. And I think that's the wonderful thing about this cross association industry-wide initiative, which truly is global in nature. So I think it's a great commitment from all of us on your behalf. And we invite you to be an official part of that. So,
Yeah. And let me add, be sure to use the GDQ resources. Go out to the
yes.
globalDataQuality.org. There is a tremendous set of information that's been put together by people. We've had tremendous contribution from all of the industry associations, putting it all into one place. Some of our best thinking and best findings about survey data quality, and that's available for people to download and use, and really encourage people to get familiar with that information.
Absolutely. Great. Well,
Thank you
anything
all.
else your panelists would like to say before we wrap it up?
Really, just to build on the point that Rachel made about the pledge, I can't see why every research buyer doesn't have in their basic procurement rules only buy from suppliers who have signed the pledge. It's not 100% of the way there for your attention, but it's an essential step. You are not in a position where you can truly evaluate all of those steps every time you do a project. By putting in that as a step, only work with companies who've signed the pledge, you're going to be in a much better position.
Absolutely.
And be part of the process. Join us. The resources are there. Reach out to any of the associations who are listed on the GDQ page. We all have working groups. We'd love to have people involved, and it's a great opportunity to have your voice be incorporated in shaping what's coming next in the industry.
Agree completely. Well, thank you to everybody who joined today. We really appreciate it. And a special thanks to Ray and Antonio and SMR for hosting the session and setting this up, and for Rachel and Chuck on the contributions in the slides and presenting today. So we really appreciate it, everyone. Thank you so much. And we hope to hear from you soon. See
Thank
you next
you.
time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.